I didn't think I could publish it. I wasn't looking at the end of what would happen after publishing the book. There was no means. I didn't see any open doors because I had tried to get published with the People Live Here manuscript, which I had at the time, and that had, you know, gone through some failure. So I was just interested in getting it out on the page, and then suddenly the Cyber Manuscript Prize came up, and there was a deadline, and there was a prize of 150,000 naira, I think, and I needed money. I was a youth corper in Taraba, so I thought, okay, if I had this manuscript ready, I could win this prize, and that was what happened. But then I didn't come first place. I didn't win the prize, but I got picked by Parisha, and that's how my publishing journey kind of began. I was, you know, very unaware of what the country or the nation meant to people living in the border towns and people who are away from the central, where I had, where I had lived. I had lived in, I was born and I was raised in Abuja. Went through a couple of cities in the north central, but I had never truly lived in a border place or gone to places at the edge. And I was coming to these places with this naivety of how police systems worked, or this idea of or mythology of care that the children at least were owed, you know, by the nation or the government or whatever. And I got there and I saw these people who had been ignored, who were routinely, it seemed like they were not even being thought about. They were, herdsmen attacks upon herdsmen attack at the time. I would come to Facebook to report some of the things I had seen, but and then I would see no news coverage that I could use as a kind of backup. And so I turned to fiction. Now it was not just the devastation I saw that made me write. It was also some of the beauty that I saw, the quiet and that isolation. It's the moving into darkness is somewhat removed in some ways from Nigeria, or it's somewhat distant from Nigeria because it's set, say, 100 years in the future. I was able to achieve that because I was somehow moving away from the central or the center of the country where the mythology of the country was being perpetuated, to a border town gave me that perspective or distance I needed to write about, write projections of what I was seeing into the future. My time in Taraba was a very insightful one. I was very hopeful about things in the country. I felt like, if all of us were talking about what we were seeing, then that would bring about change. It was a time of dreaming, like being removed and then being in this very. I was raised in Abuja mostly, and as of that time, I had spent time in my father's tribe. But when I was in Taraba, I was in this very multicultural place where multiple languages were being spoken by everyone, and multiple subsets of cultures were just being like, on display. I remember my students getting me a jar of totally. I don't know if it's totally they called it there, but I've forgotten what they called it there. But a bottle of it to wear on my eyes, because men in that part of the country, or men in the town that we were in, would wear. It was part of a beauty requirement, or a part of a beauty treatment. Um, and so they gave me a bottle. Yeah, it was, fresh fish, um, lots of honey. So, as painful as it was, my time there, it was also beautiful. And my students still reach out to me to this day. But yeah.
Heading into the book now, I think from the first story, Pretty Bird, like hey, as I was saying, it reminded me of that daughter's song, Wrong.
We're talking about
Yeah, about the
music.
music. Yeah, so I think I'm just going to repeat the question just for editing purposes. So I was talking about the song Run
Let me look up the
by
song.
Daughter, where is the story of like two lovers. They were running from one or two things like that. So that was that was the atmosphere that it was giving. So I was very interested in how like you painted that atmosphere. Don't know what we've done, but the fire. What was that creative process like for writing Pretty Bird, like music wise? Because I'm interested in the music you're listening to, and then maybe any other thing.
Honestly, the process for the stories were really distinct, because it really felt like a book in my
Mm,
head, because like the process for the stories were all the same, like in terms of music, whatever. I mean, I was exposed to music by you at the time, because it was when I was writing the stories at the time that I came to Just for the first time. And also the topography of the land, like coming into, there's this back road through, you will cross the Biu River after Wukari, and then there's a kind of like a secret road that isn't used. It's not like a main road, um, from Taraba to Jos. It's very narrow and unused, and it's some kind of like abandoned colonial buildings. And but then there, you see palm trees, and then as you keep getting close to Jos, it gets even more insane, because the road winds up the plateau. You go past, waterfalls, and then it's like the sky is so low on you. It's really fantastical. Like that environment, and then being ushered into just in that way, that charm and everything. It definitely keyed into that process. I mean, going into, and even when I was in Taraba, um, and in Jos, we would go to the mountain, the hill, that
mm,
hike, and then even just the general climate there in Jos is so different from everywhere else in Nigeria. And so that sense of being other, and Taraba, a lot of Taraba is also like that too, and it feels like you're in another world, and that quality of being elsewhere, um, go- played into the world building. And some of the new rituals I acquired, they're like, going to the Meshai to drink tea. And in Taraba, there was just this mystic and mystery about how they're like mixing up their spices. I mean, I used to think tea was just milk and bonvita or whatever, but like they had all these different
mm,
spices. Some would wrap, they'll fold the thing like snuff, like local snuff, and they'll tell you that, oh, if you drink it, you when those headsmen attack come, or Boko Haram come and they shoot you, nothing will happen to you. And you're just watching, they are drawing the thing, shroop, 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 you know, 10 naira, 15 naira. It's and that's why I had to have a Mishai in the Alainka story. And I think there was that like sacredness of that tea making ended up coming, even though it's supposed to be in this like 100 years into the future. So the environment, yeah, God, like Taraba, just like without, yeah, place was very central to that book. The Taraba and Jos, those
mm.
places were, Taraba and Plateau were very key in the making of that book. Um, yeah, it really was being pulled away from
Yeah.
Abuja, or like North Central, or like Southwest. Like this was a very different Nigeria that I had not experienced before, and so it was easier for me to make that leap into another universe
Oh.
or another timeline, not timeline, into the future I had imagined at the time. So the process was really much the same. It really was just like I was just like on my long notes from one story to the next.
So, what we won't fade into darkness is definitely like like if there was a scale of speculation, is the most speculative of your work. But there's a journalistic integrity inside
Mm.
that the human drama inside. It's very journalistic, and as you talk about Tarabana, I can see all of that. Particularly in, especially like in Pretty Bird, there's this desperation of lovers to be like together at all costs at some this, and I find also that also in the Madhouse and stuff. Where does that come from? That's where does that desperation for lovers to come from? Does that still capture your current philosophy of how love is and human connections, like that desperation to be together?
I am the desperation from love. I mean, and I've said this in interviews about the Madhouse. It really does come from reading too many Harley Quinn and Mills and Blooms novels. My aunt in Abuja would force me to read those books because she needed me to summarize them for her. But it was always the same story. Every time I was summarizing, it was always the same story every time. And so I kept on being frustrated. Like, so I guess I internalize love as being like this war that people have to fight to get to each other. Um, it's getting psychoanalytical now, but it's really from romance novels
Yeah.
that I read too much of uh, at the time.
But so is that still like your current
Yeah,
philosophy now, or has it changed?
trying to, huh, I'm trying to write. Is it? I'm trying to write other kinds of love. I don't know. We'll see. But I haven't exhausted. I feel like I haven't exhausted. And also I feel like this kind of love, I guess localizing it in the Nigerian context, is still an ongoing practice.
There's still the journalistic integrity because even when you tackle like I don't want to, for lack of a better word, I would say reverse sexism. Especially in that story, Jiden now, where we have like the women are now like the upper rungs of the society. It really felt like that's something that could happen.
We didn't. I was really lucky. I was really lucky because I didn't even feel like I had the right political or sufficient political
So,
awareness. I feel like I was just leading with my gut, and I kind of, the thing where they say, oh, someone's brain formed, fully forms when they're 25 or
yeah.
something. I remember, like, I got more political aware, especially with the gender dynamic, shortly before the book was about to be released. And I was like, oh my God, I hope this is not problematic. And to my shock, or to my, to my joy, every woman who read it, nobody, I really felt like people were going to think I was attacking feminism, and that was I don't know how I feel like I was very lucky with that story because I could see how it could be read in certain ways, but I was also, I guess, taken for granted. I hadn't even fully, I was not aware of, like, what wave of feminism we are now in the world. I was just leading based on instincts and based on like gender dynamics in the Bible, because just the idea of taking forward the scripture which I referenced, that there's going to be more women than men, and the women are going to be desperate. I wanted to really stay with that, like, if there's going to be more women than men, and men use it as a way of, like, we have value, we are the prize, whatever. But I was like, I don't think this is going to be necessarily a good thing. And so that was when that matriarchy came from, because I was like, if there are more women, there'll be consolidation of power, da 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 da. But it's more. I mean, now that I'm old, I'm seeing how, of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that even population isn't doesn't necessarily mean that, like, reversal of hierarchies, because we are all under these systems, and they are being manifest through us, regardless of gender. So, but I'm lucky. I was really lucky because that's a really politically ambitious story, and yeah, I somehow, you know, it came out it landed on its feet. So yeah, I am proud of. I have seen some gender reversal stories in my time, editing, when I was doing a lot of editing too, and yeah, I was like, okay, I see what I was doing right, even though I
Mm.
wasn't like fully conscious, but I was like, okay, you've switched the genders now. What next? What are you doing with this? Like, are you just switching the genders for switching its sake? Or how then can you then critique the dynamics at play here? But yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I loved also about Chidena was, there's this mother-daughter dichotomy where mothers try to make sure that their daughters don't like become them. And I saw that reflected in Jidena and his father, and I was like, huh,
I mean, if you look at,
yeah.
if you consider that dynamic, that father-son dynamic, and then you see it as kind of like the seed of Sharif and his sons in the madhouse. Like that, I think that was really where, or maybe again, since I wrote the madhouse before this story, the father-son thing has always been with me. I mean, I had a short story published this year that still worked with the
Yeah.
father-son. I'm very interested in the way men
Yeah.
relate to each other. And how we access our emotions, and how we communicate with each other, because of all this restraint and being emotional and whatever. So it's always going to be something I'm interested in. And Jidena gave me the opportunity to see things from the father's perspective, and that father that we always see as stern or mean. I have a version of the story that's written from the father's perspective as well, looking for the son, right?
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, like I had,
Okay.
Jidena is about someone's perspective, is one perspective, but like I have a version of the story that's from the other person's perspective. I think it's Cold in the Earth. I've never found a publisher for that, but yeah, probably that would be like my next, if I do a sci-fi short story collection again. That so we see the other side of things. And one thing fiction gives me is the opportunity to access different POVs. And I know that the father-son wound is something that lots of millennials, specifically in my generation, are struggling with. They get older, and then the fathers are like, "Why are you not calling me?" And they're like, "Well, you used to tell me that you're not my friend, so why should I call you?" So even though it's set again 100 years in the future, I was still interested in that human to human relationship, especially father son in that specific story.
So what another one curiosity I had was, so in a world like because the way men and the way men relate to each other, and I think a part of me has always felt like it's because of our place in society. So that's already sort of like affects the way men relate with men. Do you think that if it were reversed, do you think that these dynamics between men will change? Like, would we, like, let's say for instance, would we be like a lot more caring, a lot more vulnerable with each other just because we are the downtrodden, or men are the downtrodden rather?
Man, it's so. And by the way, you are frozen
Oh, no
right now.
problem,
Your screen is
no
frozen.
problem.
But yeah, I used to have very simplistic answers to these things, but like now that I've been studying history and like psychoanalysis, I don't know that that's going to be the case, because it's really more complex than
True.
that. There are definitely tribes where women are the matriarchy, but like it's more in a lot of situations, the downtrodden people or the people who are oppressed, sometimes their only way out of their only source of reprieve is by proving they are better slaves, right? Like we see that in even in Black American history here, right? Like we see that in
Mm-hmm.
tribalism right now in Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like even though we are all under the roots of oppression, many of us would still
Hmm.
sacrifice the other person, the next person, to be closer to the master. So it's not as simple as yeah, I've learned the hard way
Hmm.
that oppression does not mean we're not all oppressed the same way, and people are always going to have different motives and different things that drive them. It's not cut
Hmm.
and dry like we would hope. Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are as a
Hmm.
country if oppression was a unifying force.
Oh my God, if oppression was a unifying force. That's a line. That's a line. So my next question, just like stepping out of the book for a bit, would be actually about the Nigerian condition.
Also, like it seems like we've been spending more time outside of the book the whole time. Like when you're just using the book as stepping stone to go outside already. So when you say stepping outside the book, I was like, ah,
Yeah, I just wanted you to speak on like I don't say the role of speculative fiction in creating new myths. I think I'll structure it as
okay.
because myth making is very important to cultural formation. It's very important to, I think, like shaping the mind. And for our minds to move forward, like let's say in Nigeria, when it comes to readership and how we think, will the creation of new myths, is it a lot more important than discovering the old myths, or do we just do both and just see wherever it comes?
For me, it's not. For me, it's not a old meat, new meat problem. For me, it's about what meats are being suppressed, what meats are being given the loudest noise, right? Like tribalism or some of these like tribalistic superiority complexes that people have that are sparking up now are old myths. If you are trying to have an old new myth, but then the veracity of them or the force of them feels new. Um, so it's not an old versus new thing. For me, it's about what myths are then undiscovered or what myths are hidden. And for me, that's the line of my that's the arc of my creative career. Um, I want to keep pursuing stories, tribes, nationalities that are not paid attention to in the larger story of what Nigeria is,
Hmm.
right? So I'm writing my first book in Taraba. I'm writing my second book in North Central. I'm writing my third book in the North because like these are not stories that when you think about when you leave Nigeria and go anywhere, the first thing they're asking you, oh, are you Yoruba? Are you from Lagos? Before, in my case, you start trying to say, oh, I'm Tiv or Idoma or whatever. It's like, well, if you are not Idoma or if you're not Yoruba or um, Igbo or maybe Hausa, then, but they want you to be Yoruba from Lagos, right? So,
Hmm.
so it's a matter of like what meats have the loudest presence, what meats have, and then versus what myths are being suppressed because we are a generous people, we are such a lively people, we dance, we you know but then especially in times of elections, some of these things that we know to be true about ourselves are less important, and then so other myths are then being made. So it's a question of power. It's not a question of what new myths do we need to make. I feel like it's about what are we not listening to, what are we not paying attention to right now.
That's incredibly powerful. I think this is still, you still touched on this in the last question, but I think it's a question that I try to ask every writer. What do you think stories can still do for us aside from just entertainment and escapism and probably education? Because I know there's the idea of it in improving our imagination and making us more empathetic. But like, what more are we getting? What more should we look at when we are telling stories?
Stories are already, I mean, again, we are where we are in Nigeria from the stories that are
Mm-hmm.
being told, right? Like, stories are already doing their
Mm-hmm.
thing. Stories are already moving the world, right? Like, I don't. It's already doing its
Yeah.
thing. It's already doing its thing. I can't even add anything
Yeah.
new to that. What I can work to do is to elevate certain stories that I feel are not being paid attention to, or try to advocate for certain stories that I feel like are not being paid attention to, or find other people in my tribe who are interested in elevating these kinds of stories that are true about
Mm,
us. Because honestly, what is being brought to the fore for us to, it reflects back to us.
mm.
I feel like if we remind ourselves that we share food with each other, we work hard, we protect each other, then maybe that is who we are going to become. But then, if other kinds of stories are being brought to the fore, that is what we will be. So, stories are often defined as, we often say, no, novelists often say stories are mirrors. I think Michael Ondaatje says a novel is a
Walking down the
mirror
road.
walking down the
Yeah.
street. But then they are also walking down the road. But they are also, stories are also, they are also kind of like models. They kind of like model reality. And we see it. Whatever story the person in power says is, you know, the default, becomes the default.
Ah.
So.
Okay. Okay. Then I have a question from, I think, a writer that I think I was talking to a while back. Um, I think so. The simple question, the short version of the question is, um, if like you were just like starting out now in the in Nigerian scene as a writer, what would you do? What would you do as an TJ Benson if you're just starting out now?
My honest answer is I have no freaking
Uh,
idea, because it has the terrain has changed
yeah.
so much now. Like, everything has changed so much now that, like, I don't even know. There used to be the model of, like, if you publish enough short stories, then you build readers, you build people across platforms, and then publishers might take you seriously potentially whenever you want to release a book. But like, all those things, has just like, I'll say one. I would say for I would definitely lean into I think something that maybe is going to be constant whatever time we live in is developing an inner
Yeah.
life with the work, developing an inner practice with the work. Just having a relationship with the work that has nothing to do with publishers or readers or the noise outside, but a kind of communion you have with the work. I remember when I was with each time I finish a book, especially when I finished the Madhouse, I thanked Sharif and Sweet Mother for leading me through, because every that period for years I would wake up and I'll be thinking of them, and I would have to carry my exercise book. I'll be thinking of them before I go to sleep. I kept thinking of them throughout that period, and until I let them go,
Mm,
and I let them go. So you have to have almost be possessed by um this work they are doing, because if it doesn't possess you, anything that doesn't possess me now, and I don't, which is not necessarily wise, but like, I know something I'm working on is going to be powerful and
yeah.
infectious when it consumes
True.
me, because then in the way that I'm consumed, I'm going to be modeling for readers to be how to be consumed by the work I'm making as well. So allow what you are making consume you. Stay away from the noise of like, oh, this is the appropriate length of work to be published, or I feel like this is a period to like where all those norms, all those rules don't apply anymore. We've seen people who self-published do so well and connect to their readers so much that the respectable publishing houses chased after them. We've seen people publish very bad books and sell extremely well. So what you have left is that work. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'll
Okay.
say.
Thank you so much. Now, final question for me. You know me. I always come. I meet my favorite writers for recommendations because I like to read what you guys are reading, so I can be like you guys when I grow up. So, I think you've already given me a lot of recommendations. They are still stacked up, but I'm always here for more because, so what are you reading right now?
What I would recommend is
The one you are reading now.
um, I'm listening. The one I'm
Yes.
reading now. What am I reading now? Because I'm in between things. I'm reading Tab Baby by Toni Morrison,
Mm,
but I'm also reading The Pisces. Um, but the last book I read that was really powerful was Biography of X by Catherine Lacey. Um, yeah, yeah. Your questions are really great. So are you sure you asked all that you
nah,
wanted
there are
to
like two
ask?
more that I have not asked. Yeah, I think my last question was
Okay.
going to be,
Okay.
but you've already touched it because it was going to be about the ideas of a personal mythology. There was this story I developed that I started using to like order my life. You get like, so if I was going to do something, I would do it according to the rules of that world. And I did for so long that, yeah, I did for so long that I kind of stopped existing in reality. So when people are like, something is wrong, I'll be like, okay, it's not wrong, but maybe in the future when the effects start hitting me, and I realize that, oh, okay, the reality caught up to me. So I guess that was what I wanted to ask because I've been exploring that.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it's a. So I was going to ask, like, do you have any personal mythologies that are like that, or just even in your own way, you know?
I mean, if it's a personal mythology, I won't be sharing it. But I the but I think some of it is what I said earlier
Yeah,
with like letting the work consume
yeah.
me, like communing with these characters as if they are real, um, talking to them, asking them what their motives are,
Mm,
um, and yeah, I mean, there are times when I would think about what would this character do in real life, or how would this
yeah.
character respond to something. I don't know if it's health. I'm not recommending it for anybody. I don't know if it's safe. But these are things that help me stay in the world I'm
Yeah.
building.
No, it's incredible. I think when I used to go straight, I did that a lot. Yeah, I did that a lot. I used to pull
Hmm.
up my character. That's why when I was developing like Pan Nelson, and when I was writing it, it was so real to me that I used to ask him for advice on how to live my life and stuff. So, yeah, it was.
And I'm sure he gave.
Oh, he gave fantastic advice I should have listened to, but in trying to be like him, I kind of like messed up
Seen.
a bunch of things because I forgot that we were not the same person for a long time. But yeah, so I think that's actually really healthy. I would advise like anybody who wants to really dig into like character building to actually do that. Several techniques. There's the whole 7 question thing where you ask a character why 7 times, and by the seventh question, you are getting to, I think, an elemental reason that the character cannot usually answer beyond. So because I had a rule of sevens like that I used to
Wow.
use and stuff. You could go further, but so yeah, there are those things. Those are the things I just like consider, parts of like a personal canon that and stuff. Just to close this off, If you had only 30 seconds to speak to people and you will never see them again, what would you say? No pressure.
Boil potatoes
Okay.
and then use like pepper soup spices
Ah.
inside the potato and then boil it for like a few minutes, take it out, put it in the oven and then let it crisp. It will blow your mind. If you like, you can have like catfish in it as well, marinated catfish. But you do potato inside, like steam potato in pepper soup spice, and then put it in the oven, and then let it crisp. It will blow your mind.
Mm,
I
okay,
love it.
okay. Thank you so much for spending, I think, about an hour and a half, despite the hiccups. It means a lot to me. And yeah, so keep writing. I know you're working on something. You shared that you had finished. Was it a draft or a project? Just quickly, how is that coming along?
I have some stories that I finished writing. I'm editing. I'm inside so many things now. I'm finishing anything that you see publication dates. That's what is ready. Just take it like
Yeah.
that. Anyone that you see public announcements, that just take it like that.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so
Yeah, but it's coming well. I have a completed manuscript, but then I'm realizing that like I was going to publish it last year, but I'm realizing that it's set in a larger universe, where there was an actual the civil war in Nigeria ended
mm,
differently. So because I'm doing a novel that's kind of going to probably be the prequel, I don't know, or kind of linked in some ways. So I'm going to finish up that one before really, so that it's kind of like in sequence. But yeah, I'm always writing the next thing before the initial one, um, which is
yeah.
funny. But that's how I dodge writer's block, I
God,
guess.
it is good. I should adopt that because I used to be afraid. I used to try to work on one thing at once, and it frustrates me to no end. But yeah, yeah. Thank
Ah,
you for that tip.
some of us have that
Thank you
brain.
so much for that tip. So anyway, I think I'm done. I think we're done, and thank you so much for spending time. And after my annual review of reading, after my annual reading of a TJ Benson book, I shall come and hit you up again for that discussion if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you. I've not talked or thought about this book in a while now. So thank you so much for bringing back the ghost. Yeah, I look forward to talking to you about Madhouse or
Yeah,
People
I
Live
know.
Here. It's going to be,
No,
I can
definitely
imagine.
it's going to be people
Yeah.
live here because there's a lot to unpack. I think I'm at this space now where I can unpack people live here. Thank you so much and bye bye. Um,
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. I really
yeah,
enjoyed this.
I'm happy you did.
Yeah.
So,
Let me know when it's up because I want to look for it and reshare
oh,
and
no
everything.
problem. I
So,
would. So I've stopped the recording.